Okay, so today we're talking battle magic. We're going to be talking about fundamentals and practice and building spell works around that. You'll see my notebook because you know me. I make outlines and things so I stay on point and don't continue to ramble. So, battle magic, we're starting with fundamentals. So, one of the most basic understandings about battle, one, a battle is one point of a war. And sometimes war, we have many, many little battles in one bigger war, and sometimes it's just a battle. And that's the entire war itself. It's just one battle and we're done. It really kind of depends on situation and what the battle is and how we're moving through that. And the actions we take will determine on, are we creating more battles later or are we ending a battle? So in battle, all it is at its basic core, two opposite sides in conflict. There is always an aggressor and a defender. The tricky part is, though, it's not always clear who the aggressor and the defender are. A lot of times, I would say the majority of reason we end up in conflict is because we have bad communication. Just in general, people do. We think that everybody holds our perspectives. We think that everybody holds, our truths and how we perceive the world and what we think is right or wrong. This is everybody. That's not true. Everybody's going to have their own perspectives. Everybody's going to see things through the different perspectives. When we talk about battle in two sides, an aggressor or a defender, there are a lot of times that an aggressor will say that the defender made the first moves. They said this, or they started doing these actions, which led us to believe that, they were coming after us or were going to eventually come after us. So we're going to go on the offense instead of defense. And so in their mind, they're a defender, but they took offensive action. To me, the easiest way to see an aggressor and a defender is an aggressor is offensive, a defender is defensive moves. A defender does not take the first action. The aggressor does. The aggressor takes the first action. The defender makes choices and actions based upon what the aggressor does. The actions they actually take will dictate what the defender does. That's one way of seeing aggressor and defender in a very, very high level, just generalization. Another aspect of aggressor and defender, and when we really start thinking about what battles we want to engage in, what battles do we need to engage in, aggressors always come from dominance. Not of self, but of others. They want to dominate something else. They want to take what something else has. They want to assert their authority. All of these actions, it's all the negative aspects of domination over something else, over another person, over an ecosystem. This is the mode of aggressor. They are going to take the stance of, you have something, I want it, I'm going to take it. Or I want to dominate you. I want to be in control of you and what you do and how you move and what you think. These are the actions of an aggressor. A defender, they're going to defend foundations. They're going to defend their people. They're going to defend foundations. They're going to defend against that kind of dominating control over them or the things that are sacred or important to them. So again, another way to be looking at aggressor and defender. Defender, guardianship. And doesn't mean that you don't battle and you don't know how to battle and you can't war. It's there's so much of this in our society where we think that, being a guardian means that, you're weaker, that because you're not, out there battling in the streets and with a sword and threatening other people, that this is not strength. I personally feel the guardian has way more strength than an aggressor, because a guardian, is very much, they fight, but they fight for a purpose beyond just themselves. An aggressor is generally fighting for their own self. What can they get from this? What will they personally receive? So just different ways to be thinking about aggressor and defender to kind of gauge where you are, what side you're on. Because you can think that you're on the defender side, but your actions and what you're doing is really on the aggressor side. That's why I said sometimes it's not always clear. It's a matter of perspective, but also understanding a movement. Understanding the movement and the motivation agenda behind that movement. Is it for only yourself and what you gain, or is it protecting that which is outside of yourself? That doesn't mean you're not protecting yourself. But the aspect of not just you. Because even in the people that are defending themselves, they're also defending other things besides just them. It's generally a way of life or a way of being or their family or their homes, or, you get the idea. So another fundamental of battle magic, why we're battling and what we're battling with. So for me, it really comes down to two things. So the why, what we're battling for, that comes down to an aspect for me that comes out as the things that drive our life. So first of all, our roots, our foundations, the things we have built and grown and nurtured and, continue to be the deepest parts of us. The torch, that's all about possibilities and hopes and dreams of what could be or what we want to do or what we want to create. The hammer. The hammer is our strength, our will, and our determination. This is what fuels and what keeps us going, even in our struggles. Our tears. This is our pain, our sorrow, our loss, our grief. These things drive us. We don't want to experience this again. We don't want other people to experience the things that we've experienced because of a certain action or movement. So it drives us to make changes, to change patterns, to change cycles. And then feathers, our thoughts and our memories. Again, the things, they're all interconnected. The thoughts and memories feed the roots. It is a driving force behind our hopes and our dreams. It's, what keeps us on par with our hammer aspect, our strength, our will, our determination. It keeps it focused and in line. So they're all interconnected. They're all moving back and forth. They're not separate things. They're one grouping that all works together, all these different sides in different measures. So the reason why we battle are these kinds of things. These are the driving forces. What we battle with, how we battle. for me, comes in the aspect of shield, horn, and sword. Now, your shield, horn, and sword may look very different than mine. You may not even call it a horn. You may call it something else because, it's going to be dependent on you and your path. The shield are my guides and allies. The shield is all of them. It's not just deities, but it's all my guides and allies. The ones that I share close bond with, the ones that I work with, the ones that are consistent in my life. These are my shield, because not only are they going to be giving me information and, giving me lessons and helping me grow and all this, but they're going to provide protected space as well. It's a friend standing up for a friend. It's not going to happen unless you have that kind of a bond with them. But the ones that we have really close bonds with, it's a relationship, just like a friendship. And we're going to have each other's backs. We're going to stand with each other. Horn, voice. So my aspect of battle is heavily voice. And that's from an aspect of speaking. It's an aspect of my magic, because my battle magic is in voice. And we'll get into that when we get into sword. But for me, horn is voice. Sword, the implement which I battle, that gives me the power to battle, or the weapon to battle. My weapon is the runes. And it's not just one set of runes. It's all the runes that I have created and done rune journeys with. These are my weapons. So I have my shield, which is my guides and allies. I have my horn, the way that I battle, which is voice. And then my sword, my weapon of battle, is runes. And using them in the aspect of Galdr. If you've taken the Death Emissary course, you know exactly what we're talking about here. So again, even if you don't follow these, which is fine, create your own. But what are you battling for? What are the foundations? What are the things you're protecting? What is the sacred? Not just from a fleeting, not just from a, this is, what I'm protecting now. What are you deeply connected to? What does that look like? What does it give you? What do you give back? These are your driving forces. This is what you're guarding. The with, what you're guarding with, how you guard. What are the tools that you use to guard? What are the tools that you use in battle? So you can look at mine and rearrange them completely. Like I said, horn voice may not be your battle move. Maybe it's something completely different. You can change things around. You can move it around, or you can create your own. Just dependent on, how you battle. Magical warfare. So we are talking from a spirit magical perspective of warfare. That's what we're talking about in this workshop. We're not going to go into, raise your swords and get on the field and fight. That's not how we fight. We're magical creatures. We are connected and move in that way. We are spellcasters. So we use magical warfare. Couple of things about magical warfare to think about. The first, the witch battles with their eyes closed. I know that sounds strange, but again, we're magical users. We are not the ones on the battlefield with a sword facing somebody else with another sword or with guns or whatever. We're not physically battling from body to body. We're using magic. We're using energy and shifting patterns within cycles to create different outcomes. So we battle with our eyes closed because what we battle with is energy. We are taking this cycle of battle. And don't think it's unique. There is a cycle for battle just as there is for everything else. This little webbed pattern that, this is the general way that it flows. Those are the choices that people will generally make, and these are the general outcomes. What we're doing is we're taking the strings in that cycle and in that creating new patterns in it to shift and manipulate and direct a new outcome. In essence, that's what we do. That's what we do with magic. So we are acting as fates in that aspect. We're shifting and weaving, breaking the strings on the web, and we're reconnecting and moving and shifting to create different outcomes. The cycle will always be the cycle in some form, but that's very generalized. What that looks like, how that plays out, the actions that we take within that can be completely different, each one giving us a completely different outcome. It's like framework versus instructions. We're not working with instructions, we're working with frameworks. We're working with energy, we're working with spirits, we're working with spiritual allies. Thus, we work with our eyes closed. It's not about seeing from a physical world scientific perspective. It is about being in that magical space and knowing what we can do. Judgment and justice. This is probably the biggest and hardest aspect for people to really wrap their head around and understand and incorporate. So, judgment, we will make certain assumptions based upon what our senses give us. We look at somebody, we look at how they're dressed and how they're presenting themselves, we make judgments. When somebody, we're listening to them talk and they say something that is, goes against our own thing, or it's a different perspective that doesn't vibe with us, we make judgments. All kinds of judgments. Here's the problem. You are judging only from your perspective, what you think. And a lot of times our assumptions are wrong and makes us make mistakes, all this. So try to remove those kinds of judgments, those surface level judgments that we make, those snap judgments. And give opportunity to really observe and watch and interact and see what happens. To make clear and deeper judgments for yourself. And that's kind of the thing, it's judgments for yourself. You may know a person and that person is just ick to you. Their energy just doesn't vibe with yours. There is, so much you don't agree with them and all this, but your best friend is friends with them. And they absolutely love them. They think they're great. And you love your best friend. Now you guys get along fabulously. We all have different perspectives. We all interact differently with different people. Our energy is the way that we are currently vibrating, and that's not going to fit with everybody. So every time we're making judgments, we're basing it from that perspective of how we feel in that moment, where we are for ourselves, and, all of our conditionings on top of. I really, really encourage that when it comes to battle, when we're talking about judging others, when we're talking about judging sides or anything like that, get beyond the surface. Look at the actions actually being done. Look at the impacts and what's actually happening. You stop surface level judging. Justice. And in the end, and I will just say this, the death emissary people already know this, as I say it a lot. We, in the end, when we die, there are so many religions that are, oh, God's going to judge you, or the gods are going to judge you, or fates are going to judge you, all this. And from my understanding, my perspective, what I've seen, what I know from my own experiences, the only one that's judging you at the end is you. You are going to be judging yourself. You're going to be judging your own actions. You're going to be judging your own life. Nobody else can do that but you, because you are the only one that knows everything. That has, when you're lying to yourself, when you're, manipulating and all, these things. So you can't do it to yourself. And when you're faced with it, you're faced with it. So that's my stint on judgment. Justice. So justice, again, this is probably the most difficult. From my experiences, what I've gone through, what my guides have shown me, Kari is huge on justice. And it took me quite a while to really wrap my head around this and understand this. There is a difference between justice and baneful magic. And I see a lot of times people saying that their baneful magic is justice, but they're still deep in the fields. So what I mean by that, if you have been wronged by somebody and hurt by somebody, and you were deep in that hurt, you are still feeling it, the emotion is raw, and you're doing a spell that is a baneful magic, so something that is going to affect them in some sort of negative way, that's not justice, that's vengeance. That's really what we're talking about in a lot of, not all baneful magic, because baneful is huge, but when we think about that kind of baneful magic of getting even, making them feel what I feel, making them experience what they had me experience. In our societal mind, that's justice, but that's not justice from a nature perspective. That's vengeance. You want somebody to hurt as much as you do. And it's those emotions that are fueling that spell work. Justice requires us to remove ourselves from those emotions, to look at the entire situation from a very objective perspective, looking at both sides of that conflict and what is fueling both sides. What, is possibly something, a miscommunication, a misunderstanding, one person misunderstood another person's actions, and so they did something bad to that person. Now that person's doing vengeance spells on them. A lot of times there's a lot of miscommunication one way or another, whether it's spoken communication, whether it's nonverbal communication, whether it is our own past pains and traumas. We've seen this cycle before. We know this pattern. And so we're assuming when this person does this one thing, that it's going to be this. This is where they're going. But they're a different person than the person in the past. And so are you. You grew from that. You understand this. Doesn't mean that you're not cautious. It doesn't mean that you don't take precautions and address these things when they come up. But when we're doing justice, we have to remove our own emotions. We have to back out of that in order to see very objectively, and also to see what we did wrong too. Not blameless. We can do things just as an unconscious, somebody misinterprets that, and then here we go, we're in battle. Or we could purposely do something and it affects this other person in a very negative way. They get really angry. We do battle. I'm not going to expect a lot of people to understand justice in this way until you start really diving into what does that mean. Not from a societal perspective. We see what that means in society, and that's not justice either. We have a lot of injustice in our justice. But from a nature perspective, from a soul perspective, from a death emissary perspective, what does justice mean? How does it combine with sovereignty and understanding not just personal sovereignty, but the responsibilities of sovereignty to what we're guarding, to who we're guarding, to who our group is? And I mean that from, family and friends and communities, the things that you work within. But there is a very thin line between justice and vengeance. And I see a majority of people working from vengeance. It's not justice. And it's because of that emotional component. You can bring back the emotion to fuel the spell work after you've gone through the justice, but generally you won't. You're not going to have anger and hatred when you do this. It's going to be a different combination of emotions, and it's going to be very justice, not vengeance. One last thing with that: aggression does not equal power. It's another societal conditioning. We have to be aggressive. We have to be, at the forefront and pushing and making ourselves seen and heard. And, that's what we see in society. We see a lot of bullies that are creating this kind of aggression and equating that to strength. It's one of the things that males are conditioned with excessively, that strength means aggression, aggressive action, aggressive movement, aggressive words. This conveys strength. It doesn't. It conveys a bully. It conveys negativity aspects of strength. We don't have to be that to be strong. We don't have to incorporate and imbue those types of negative, aggressive aspects in order to strengthen a justice spell or work in battle, especially from a defender side. We generally don't. Doesn't mean we won't if we're confronted. That's the thing that people miss. They think that, if you're not doing that, that you're weak, that you're silent and you're weak, these kinds of aspects. But we're strategic. And we're not weak. We're just fighting a different way. And which is more effective? The one that is calm, calculated, and thinking through every process and using the different aspects to bring in the strength, to bring forth the strength from the self, to have endurance and vitality is strength. Or is it the person that's making decisions based on their emotions and being chaotic and just, aggression, aggression, aggression. I bully enough, I'll get my way. Something to think about. Okay. So everything from here on out, I'm going to be speaking from a defender guardian standpoint. I do not battle from a place of aggression. I am not going and starting battles. That's not my mode. Granted, some of my words and things that I say and thoughts create, a battle mentality in some people. But that's not my goal. My goal isn't to create battles. My goal isn't to wage wars. It's just not my way. I'm a defender and a guardian. I'm here to, fight if the battle comes. If somebody brings a battle, then I'm standing up and fighting. But it's also going to be, again, back to what drives, is it attacking my roots, my foundations? Is it going after something sacred? There are a lot of battles that we can walk away from, that we don't need to be fighting. People are going to say all kinds of things. Hang on, I need a drink. So people say all kinds of things. They spout off at the mouth all the time, especially on social media. Do we need to fight them? No, not really. Generally, we just need to walk away. I mean, if they're not in a position to receive, understand, or even consider another perspective than their own, you're in wasted breath. You could sit there all day long and point stuff out to them, but they're not going to receive it. So you're just wasting your time. Walk away. Silence does not equal surrender. Silence does not equal weakness. Silence is a good sign of strength and strategy, if you really want to be honest about it. There are so many battles that people want to fight over stupid stuff that doesn't even matter. They just want to fight. Don't play into it. That's my mode. Just don't play into it. And if they're not in a place where they can receive, everything's wasted breath. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting their time. And I'm bored. Okay, so everything from here on out, we're talking defender. Because that's the way that I work. Battle is not for dominance. We don't bring battle to dominate over another person, to try and change them, to try to subjugate them, to take from them because we want what they have. It's not our mode. We are focused on bringing balance, harmony, alignment between the two opposing sides. In the end, guardianship is focused on peace. How can we resolve this conflict? Find a place of alignment between us. Doesn't mean we're all going to agree on everything. It doesn't mean that, I'm going to change or you're going to change. What it means is we're going to find that common ground between us, a place where we can both stand together and say, okay, this is our common ground, and we respect each other's differences. So, it comes to that point. The person dominating is dominating for a reason. Just as we're protecting for a reason, they're dominating for a reason. What's the reason? How can we get to that? How can we find compromise between us in order to generate a alignment, in order to coexist together? That's always my thinking. When I'm thinking about the way that I battle and the reasons and what my goal is. My goal is not to dominate the other person. really have no desire there. They brought this fight to me. Doesn't mean that, I'm all on board with, squashing them out. Something's wrong, something's messed up, and what is that? A thing to remember when we talk about any type of magical work or spell casting or spiritual work. You are attached to every spell you cast. I don't care how you do this spell. I don't care what you put in there to sever it from you. You are putting your energy and fueling that spell with your energy. Even if you're using allies and other things within that, you are still the one that is putting it together. It's your energy weaving it. So a remnant of that energy, that connection between you and this spell is always there. It may be very, very weak. It may be very, very strong, depending on how you make that attachment. But that means that not only is your energy changed by that spell, and it is, not from it's completely changed, but there's a small vibrational change dependent on the spell that you're working on. And your energy is carried with that. With the spell, as it's being released, your energy is going out there too. Not all of it, just a little. But little after little after little starts to add up. Think about the types of spells you're casting. Making sure that they're in alignment with your foundations, with your boundaries, with the person that you are creating and becoming, and in your transformative path and in your path in life. Because that energy is connected. To think that you are going to do a vengeance spell on somebody and everything's hunky-dory once you're over, everybody worries about backfiring and all that. I'm more concerned with, what did I just attach my energy to? What have I bound myself to? Not from this, big way that's changing everything, but piece by piece by piece. If I keep doing vengeance spells over and over and over, and they become a good part of the work that I'm doing, I have changed my vibration and energy through that to match into more of the vengeance side. Something to keep consideration. What kind of spells are you casting? What are your primary spells you're casting? What do all the different modes, how are they shifting your energy a little bit? How are they working with the vibration that you want to create versus the one you're creating with this? Allies. We're witches. We're spirit workers. We're magical users. We have allies in all forms and shapes. Some are unseen allies, some are herbal allies, some are deity allies, some are ancestor allies. We have all these different allies that we connect and work with in all different spaces. Battle is not anything different. Not all of our allies are going to be aligned with battle magic. But I personally have certain allies that are core and key for justice and battle magic. And when I'm doing that work, it is those specific allies that are in that work with me. They're the ones that have said, hey, we're here for this. And even then, they may not be part of every single working. It depends on where, they fit, where their domain is, what they have said that this is important. When it's justice, it is Kari. He is at the forefront all the time with any type of justice working. And that's because that is his big, huge domain. When it comes to the runes as weapons for me, he is very much at the forefront with that, but so is the goddess Hel. Those two really are the voice battle aspects coming from different ways. Kari is very much world-based and physical world and the material aspects. And Hel is very much the keeper. You know, what she does for the good of souls. And so that's how they kind of work together. She's the why, he's the how aspect in battle. One thing about allies, though, do not ask an ally to do something you would not do yourself. What I mean by that is if it goes against your morals, if it goes against your foundations, if it goes against your boundaries, if it is not something that if you had the power to, that you would do yourself and attach yourself to it, do not ask an ally to do it. We're not talking about rules. We're talking about etiquette. We're talking about, not being an asshole. Don't ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. If you don't want to do it, and, if it's not something that you would do, find a different action to get you the result that you're looking for. If you wouldn't go out and murder somebody, don't ask your ally to do it. Murder is not the option here. It goes against your foundations or morals. So instead, what else can you do to achieve the outcome you're looking for? What else? What other actions? Exchange. We shift energies. We move energies. We break in order to move it to a different direction. So, destruction and creation. This is how we work as magical and spiritual users. There is exchange between us and our allies. I ask my ally to do something, my ally is going to require something of me. It's give and take exchange. Is it always equal exchange? No. But it's give and take exchange. And over the course of the relationship, it's equal exchange. You should never be asking more than you're giving. You should never be giving more than you're asking. It's not the exact science of it, but it's just a contemplation of it. When we're thinking about battle magic specifically, I'll get two of my stones here. Oh, hot candle. Okay, so this is your aggressor side. This is your defender. A way to think about exchange of energy, because energy is never created or destroyed. It comes, and it comes from somewhere. It's shifted from somewhere. So when we think about this as battle magic, instead of just focusing all of our energy here, what can we do here? Two-sided attack. So I want to close a road to my enemy. They're going down a path and they need to be blocked. But I could use a road open on my side. A different way forward, or a different path, or a different ally, or something, a road opening. So think about it this way. A two-ended spell. We're blocking a road from them, stealing that energy, moving it, shifting it from them to our side. And we're going to use the energy we took from here, and we're going to open a road that we need on this side. It does need to be similar like energy. So, like I said, close a road, open a road. Think about it within its duality. That's going to help you determine what you want to do on this side to block them or stop them or whatever needs to happen. And something on this side that's going to beef it up, that's going to feed it in a positive way. Shifting energy, taking from one and boosting another. Put those back. Okay. Lastly, on fundamentals and understandings, there are magic users on both sides. I've seen people talk like, especially in our current world, this is a aspect that we can look at. There are so many people that think that all the witches and the pagans and all this are all against Trump, that they're not in his camp, that they're not on that side. They're all over here fighting against him. It's not the way it is. You have magic users on both sides. You have people, pagans, witches, occultists, that are all over here too, and that are fighting against this side, while this side is battling this side. There is magic on both sides. There are magic users on both sides. With this in mind, be very careful at what you're putting out there. We're seeing so many people. I'm seeing so many people putting out the spells that they're casting against them. They are being very public about their battle moves and their plans. You're just giving this magical user side the ability to block you. Instead of thinking about it from this very public space, think about it from your own groups and circles, your own community, your friends, your coven, your temple. Think about who's in there. And there may be people that are from over here that are in your group that you just don't know. So again, careful. Get to know the people in your communities. Share with them. Ask them questions. Get to know them so you can get to know, are they going to be for the work that you're doing, or are they going to be against the work that you're doing? And stay silent. Move silent. Keep it tight-knit. Keep it closed groups. Not from a perspective of, don't share anything. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about battle plans. We're talking about battle magic. Secrecy is important here until the magic is carried out. When the magic is done, you can say whatever you want to say. But if you're being very public about your moves and what you're planning and what you're doing, you're giving them all the opportunity to counter you, to know what you're doing. Even if they don't know all the details, you've told them what the plan is. They're like, yeah, I got that. They can find their own ways to battle. Magic users on both sides. All right. Battle magic in practice. So, like I said, the fundamentals, the in practice, the spell creations, it's going to depend on you. I gave you my perspectives of fundamentals, things that I have found useful, things that I incorporate for myself. But yours may be different. You may have different morals and foundational sets than I do. You have different boundaries than I do. Do not look at this as instructions. Look at this as a framework, some guidance, some ideas, some things to consider. And you're going to have to do the work and figure out, what does this look like for me? How do I work in this mode? What is my aspects that are driving me, and what are my weapons? What is my core? Please, please keep doing that. Okay. In practice, first off, where are your skills? What is the current magic you do? What are the modes? Do you do a lot of candle magic, knot magic, energy magic? What are your skills? Are you more engaged with unseen or seen? And what I mean by that, do you work more with spirits that are entities, animals, deities, plants, or are you working with them more in the physical? You're an herbalist, very hands-on with your crafting, oils, things like that. Know your skills and know what is the current magic you do. Keeping a journal of all your spell work really helps you kind of get a layout, because you can be thinking, oh, I do tons of love magic. And then when you look at it, you're like, oh no, I'm doing tons of shadow work magic. That's what I do. I'm breaking myself to heal. I'm not just, love and incorporation. You think about it. Take time. Really look at it. And where are your skills? Just as we have different soul senses, and each of us have more affiliation, more natural ability towards one or another. Same thing in all magic modes and stuff, and where our skills lie. I'm a death emissary. I work heavily with spirits, the unseen. And that's all the unseen, whether we're talking deities, land spirits, nature spirits, elementals, and it's the dead, the unknowns. I deal in the unseen a lot. So all my work is going to be connected to that in some sort of way, because of the way that I work, because of my understandings, because of my practices. There's always that mix of, physical world and unseen world. And I understand that the unseen world is affected by our physical world, just like they affect us, we affect them. Not in a very, we build a building, so a building pops up over there. It's not like that. But there are changes in energy based upon what we're all doing, especially the closer we are, vibrational plane wise. And so because of all this, a really good working relationship and an understanding of things they might want to be involved in, if it's physical world here versus there. And so I'm going to use that. I'm going to use those kinds of skills that I have developed with them, the things that they have taught me, my understanding of justice. As hard as it is sometimes, that's going to be one of those aspects for me. That plays into my skills. I see it as a skill to be able to remove myself and, see from a different objective, and to honestly look at my own actions and my own words and the things I am doing, knowing that I cause ripples too. So what are your skills? What is the current magic you do? In battle, go with your strengths. These are your strengths. So find ways to use them from a battle aspect. How can you use not magic from a battle aspect? How can I use my connections with my unseen in a battle aspect? It's just, that's first. Second, who are your allies? And we touched on this before, but not all your allies are going to be allies in battle. Aramid is not coming into battle. It's just not happening. The Morgan, for me, is not going to play a huge role in the actual battle. She is my foundation. She's who I built foundations with, who I learned how to be tower and stuff. The lessons that she taught me certainly are part of my battle aspect. But when it comes to outright battle, she's not in my mode of battle. She's in my mode of sovereignty, and she's in my mode of foundations and shadow healing, the shadow work and healing soul, that kind of aspect. So she wouldn't be one that I'd be like, hey, let's go battle something. For me, that wouldn't be it. Kari, though, 100%, let's go. So know who your allies are, know where they fit in your practice, not from a standpoint of what everybody else thinks of them and how they work with them, but how do you connect? What roles do they play in your practice, in your spiritual path? That's going to help you, determine who are the best people for different kinds of battles. Know their roles that they play and coordinate and weave cohesively. So if I'm fighting a battle against our current situation, a aspect in that. So we're talking about one of the most important aspects to me right now is freedom of religion, because without that, then we lose so much else. It's not my only thing, but it's one of the things that when it comes to a community aspect that I think about. So I'd be using Kari for the voice and the rune aspect. I would be using Flittish for a guardianship. Maybe Aramid from a healing aspect of, trying to heal and give the other side a different perspective or movement. And then Hel from a very keeper aspect. You can blend and weave even if they aren't your battle deities. It's not all destruction and battle. There's healing and compromise. And so just think about it. And not every battle will be the same. It's not always going to be every battle that Kari is probably going to be front and center. It's going to be there when we're talking about justice. He's going to be there when we're talking about leadership aspects. Goals and intentions of battle. Be strategic and be clear. Just saying, I want the orange one dead. It's not helpful. I want the orange one out of power. That's not helpful. You need to be talking about the problem itself, not just the person. So if your problem is that a bunch of people are following him because he does a certain speech rhetoric that is very complacent in cults, repeat until they start repeating and believing. It's a tactic. It's a cult tactic, a well-documented one. So you want to attack that. Just attacking him or just attacking that he's a leader, all that, you're not being specific. And thus you're allowing way too wide of a range of aspects, because other people are going to be feeding different aspects of that energy. Be specific in what you're going after. Be strategic and clear about what you're going after. Tower, from my practice perspective and what it means to me, it is destruction for purpose. A complete, utter, burn down destruction for something new to be fertilized and grown. It is tear to bone. It is burn it down, Pookie, and replenish the soil so we can grow something new. This is my aspect of tower. So I will use that in the things that need to be completely taken out. But I will use it strategically. Like I wrote not too long ago, our government has good bones. It does. There are aspects of our government, the 3-check system, the way that the system is set up. What it has, though, is grown a lot of corruption within it. And it has. There's so much wrong with our systems and how they work. Lobbying, companies and corporations buying votes, electoral systems. We don't need an electoral college. We could do real democracy where all of us get to vote. Everybody is counted in that. All states matter. All people matter. Every single vote matters. These things that may have served a purpose at one point, don't now. They're corrupt and they're used in corruption. So I wouldn't want to burn down everything. I don't think everything needs to go. We have some good ideas in there. What we need to do is root out all the corruption. So instead of tower to the entire government, no, tower to these pieces. That would be my mode and how I would think about that. Think carefully as to what the goal is. That will show you what needs to be changed or broken. Understand the goal within the battle that you're facing. What is your outcome goal? That is going to help you see the strings and the lines and the actions that need to happen within the pattern to shift it and create the outcome goal. Voice and emotion. Talk about this all the time. Words matter. Think about the words and how they could be twisted. I call this Degenie. If you've ever played D&D, you'll understand you meet a Degenie and they give you 3 wishes, but if you're not real specific and really clear, they'll find ways to twist those words. So think really clearly about the words that you're using. The words you're using in your spell work, the words you're using with other people. Words matter. Words carry vibration when spoken out loud. Thoughts, help define the emotion and raise the emotion within us that's going to fuel those words. Everything, the word, the thought, the emotion, spoken creates a vibration which goes out and turns and twists the energy on the web. It's what changes things. It's what moves things. It's all about vibration and frequency. We get that from voice and emotion. Think about what needs to happen in each step when you're thinking about what words to choose. What needs to be broken? What are we guarding? What needs to be shifted or changed in order for that outcome to happen, that movement? Take your time. Don't just throw something together when you're talking battle magic. Be strategic. Be purposeful. Be clear. Be strategic. You're not going to get everything in one shot. Focus one thing at a time. It'll really help. Again, we touched on this when we were talking about allies, but something to think about, especially if you are a death worker, if you are a death emissary. I think everybody should consider this, but especially this group. The unseen is affected by what happens on this plane as we are affecting what happens on theirs. Like I said, it's not we build a building here and so one's built over on this energetic plane of this particular unseen. But the energy we create here, the things that happen here from an energetic movement, from a people movement, the things that we are destroying and creating and moving and advancing, energetic ripples, they ripple here too. Just the same as when conflict is happening on their plane, it can bleed out on ours. When it's happening here, we can bleed out on them. Another reason why to be thinking about your allies and asking them. Just straight up ask them. Is this something you want to be involved in? Or do you want to take part? Do you want to help me with this? If they say no, be like, cool, love what we do. But if they say yes, then start thinking about that, from the perspective of how do they work with this? How can we work with this? And you can also be thinking from a higher level kind of a thinking of how close is their plane to ours? The closer their energetic plane is to our vibration of our energetic plane, the more they get affected. The closer they are, the more stake they have in what happens here, just as we should have more stake in what happens over there. We don't really think about that part very much, but something to consider. Okay, lastly, building a spell. Know the cycle or pattern you are dealing with, the micro and macro of it. You want to see it in small form, and you also want to see it in large form. What I mean by that. So take the cycle of, what's a good one? Okay, discrimination. We'll go there. So the cycle of discrimination is you have one group here that does not like this group over here for, various different reasons, whether it's skin color, religion, whatever. So the mode here, when it comes to discrimination, is the group here wants to change or eliminate the other group because they want supremacy, they want control, they want to be the only ones in this space. They think these people are taking from them. They're taking too much. They're using resources that we could use instead. They don't want to share. They want to dominate. They want to take them out. Okay, so this is the cycle. You have these people here that want to dominate the others or take them out, or, they're taking from them. That's their mindset. These people are taking things away from us or preventing us from having certain things or whatever. So they're going to use domination and aggression, using voice, getting more people to follow them, repeating it over and over until the people start feeling that way. They're aligned with this group, but they weren't part of that small group in the beginning. But they keep talking and they keep, pointing it out and saying it over and over until these people start to believe and see, oh shit, they are taking opportunities and stuff, or they are taking this from us, and they're the cause of the problem. And so they move down here and start battling and all this so they can gain control and be the only ones there. That's the cycle. That's what happens. We've seen it with crusades. We've seen it with racism. We've seen it with slavery. We've seen it with, all kinds of aspects. So identify where in the cycle you are. So macro is seeing all of it. Micro is seeing all the little pieces that are contributing to it. So lack of jobs, and the inability for one job to pay a living wage in order to, be able to just survive. These things are helping make the case for the dominant, the aggressors. They have nothing to do with this other group. They knew this in the beginning. But here you go. So how can you eliminate them from seeing the lack of jobs as being this group's problem, and instead of, what the real problem is? So instead of being racism, this is classism. Again, it's understanding it's micro and macro. Once you see the whole entire cycle and you can identify the micro pieces, then you can start working in the micro pieces. The macro is the war. The micro are the battles within the war. When you're doing battle magic, look at the battle in front of you, not the entire war. You've seen the war when you looked at the macro. Battle the one battle you are facing. Put your energy there. Understand the perspectives and motivations of the other side. That's going to help give you clues as to what needs to change, what you can change, and how can you find an alignment between you. Where is a place you can agree and stand and start working from? Where can you create a compromise, a truce to start building from? Who are your allies in this? What is your representational magic? Yours, not another's. One color has a very specific meaning to me. It may have something different to you. Don't use mine, use yours. If you're not feeling it, you're not connected to it, it's not your representation, it ain't gonna work. You may get small, tiny little effects, sure. But it's not going to be the strength and the power that it could be if it's yours. And again, we're talking about components of the spell. Knowing the cycle helps us to narrow down to the battle that we want to focus on. Focusing on the battle, we need to understand the perspectives and motivations of the other side, because they give us clues as to what to change, how to change for an alignment. Not a domination, not to take them out, but how can we bring ourselves back to a cohesive point where we can work together, where we can coexist together? What are our allies? Who can help us? Who is connected to this cycle or pattern? Who works with us in this cycle or pattern within ourselves? Because doubt not, every battle you think you're facing on the outside, you have faced within yourself in some type of shadow work. If you've done shadow work, if not, then it's a battle within yourself too. So think about that. To see, to break, to create, to balance, then to weave a new outcome. That's what your spell is doing. You need clarity. You need tower. You need creation. You need to find balance. It's not equal, it's aligned balance. And it will, all those things connected to your goal, the outcome, they tell you what to weave into your spell. What representations you need, what energies you need, what things do you need to break on their side, and what things do you need to break on your side in order to come to a harmony? What do you need to feed on their side? What do you need to feed on your side to create that alignment where you can start working and cohesively existing together again, or at all? Look to the past to see what actions have provided what outcomes. Cycles just repeat over and over and over and over. This is not the first fall of Rome. This is not the first Germany. This is, you talk about it like, it's one point in time. It's not. This is a cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats over and over. It is the rise of a nation and the fall of a nation. The rise of an age, the fall of an age. It's the movement of the cycle. There's beauty and idea and creation. And to make room, we do a little bit of destruction, make room for the creation, then we're all in the creation. And we're moving it and we're exploring it and we're building our hopes into it. Then we're moving it in to the next phase where it's actually putting it into action and experimenting and trying things, seeing what works in the movement and building our new foundation. Then we move again and we're looking at our foundation, our building that we've created, and this wonderment and evaluating what worked, what didn't work, what was good and what could have been better. And then we move into this phase of living in it and being there and enjoying it. And then it starts to shift again. So as we're living, we're seeing problems. We're seeing some cracks. We're seeing some things that could be altered or changed a little bit. And then it continues. Repeats, repeats, repeats. We have tower because we have broke things. We have creation because we're healing those broke things. We're changing those broke things. We're doing something new with those broke things. Whole new way of movement. None of this is new. So look through history. See how it's happened before. Not just from this, but any battle that you faced or that you will face. That cycle can be equated to things. A repetitive cycle over and over and over. Sometimes it's going to be very personal. Sometimes you can see it from a historical perspective. Sometimes you see it through anthropology. Sometimes you see it in religions. So think about it. Look to the past. What actions created what outcomes? Doesn't mean that that's always going to be the whole thing, because you're looking at the collective actions created this collective outcome. But what should be shifted? What worked? What didn't work? Critical thinking. Protection and risk. That's the last thing. So everybody's so worried about protection. Oh, I've got to make sure I'm protected. I've got to have so much protection around me. I can't do this kind of spell because I'm scared that there might be a repercussion to me. There might be some blowback. There might be some, this is battle. We're not talking regular spell work. We're not talking about regular magic use. We're talking about battle magic. There is risk always in battle magic. No, we're not talking, oh, it's going to be reflected back to me. And no, but you're putting your energy into it. You're connected to that. Whatever energy, whatever emotions, whatever, vibration you're feeding into that spell, you're feeding into yourself too. So you need to be really careful. You need to be thoughtful. When you're using your weapon, you need to be really careful. You need to be really thoughtful, because it's not about, the blowback. It's about what you're changing within yourself, the vibration you're changing within yourself. Is it worth it? Is it really what you want to do? It's not always negative. There's a lot of positive change that can come through these spells too. Strength, trust in self, strength of the self, building endurance, building stability. It just depends on what mode you're working from. Are you vengeance or are you justice? Are you, tearing down just to tear down? Or are you tearing down for a specific purpose, for something new to grow from that? These things will affect, from a protection and a risk standpoint. They affect you, the changes within you. So there is no amount of protection in battle magic that is going to make you untouched. Because every spell you do, you're touched. And that's not even including what the other side does. There is risk. Is the risk what you're protecting? Is what you're guarding? Is what you're protecting? Is what you're standing up for worth the risk? That's the question you need to ask yourself before doing these spells. And how does the spell I am creating with all of these little thought processes, how is this affecting my energy? What energy am I putting in? That's telling me how I'm altering mine. These are things to think about. They're things you need to consider when talking battle magic. You will have protections. You'll have protections from your shield. That's the allies you're working with. You're going to have protections with the people that you're working with, standing together as a group, as one. You are going to have protections from, dependent on what your mode is of protection. I primarily do servitors. That's where I am in my practice. Whether it's wards, whether it's, your other spiritual and magical protections, amulets you wear, things like that. You will have some protections, but it's not going to protect you from everything. And in battle magic, your biggest risk is what you're doing. You are changing more, you are connected to that energy. That energy has potential to change if you're going against your boundaries, if you're going against your foundations, if you're going against things that you wouldn't do. That'll change it for the negative. If you are holding your foundations, if you are working within the foundations and boundaries and you're doing things to strengthen, and through that you're going to be strengthening your endurance, your vitality, and the aspects of you in that. So, I'm not going to give you specific spells that are battle. I'm giving you the checklist of things of how to build it, what to consider, what to be bringing in, thinking about your representational magic, what represents these pieces of the spell. To see, to break, to create, to balance, and to weave a new outcome. What does that look like in a spell? What is the clarity part to see? What represents the break? What represents a creation from it? What represents that aligned middle place in your little Venn diagram? What gets us to the center? Both of us. So we can at least coexist and start working towards something new together, a way forward together. So again, a lot of this, it all depends on you. Depends on you, your mode of magic, what your foundations are, what your boundaries are, who your allies are, what your representations are. I can't give you spells in a direction aspect, but you are completely capable of creating your own spells, thinking about these types of actions, the framework of it. And that's what you need to do. Following a spell that I give you is not going to be helpful because my representations may not be yours. My allies may not be yours. Do the work the way you would any other spell. Create, move, experiment, create. All right. If you have any other questions or want to talk about this more or want to get more specific into, specific battle magic and stuff, you let me know. Talk about it below. Let's start having a conversation around this for the ones that are going to be doing battle magic. Not all of you, maybe, but I know that there are some that this has been a focus. So we can go deeper.